this week the boys are going to fix Kings Canyon. Now, boys, before we have to fix something, we have to figure out what the problems are. And I have a feeling Brian's going to start saying some bullshit right now.
There's nothing wrong.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. I have one big thing that's wrong with Kings Canyon.
I actually do have something that's wrong with it, but aside from that, I love this map.
Same.
You're fucking joking me.
You're kidding me.
This
Finally,
is one thing I can agree with Brian
There's
on.
finally something that me and Chris can agree on. Let us have this.
It's a great map.
Let us have
You know
this.
what? Go ahead. Just start talking because I want to hear. I want to
mean,
hear.
What is
Chris,
your
I hope it's the same thing I think.
what is your one
I mean,
problem?
there's just one huge thing that everyone's thinking.
The massive hole in the bottom left corner of the map
Yeah.
where Skulltown should be.
Yeah, obviously.
That's
you gotta
it.
have it.
I mean,
That's the biggest issue in this map.
that POI sucks cock, by the way.
Even if
I
you
hate
don't,
it.
even if you don't have
It's not even-
Skulltown,
It's not even POI.
Is it not?
It's a it is, but it's like a side. Like there's still a hole where Skulltown Thunderdome used to
Yeah.
be.
and even if you don't bring back Skulltown, you gotta bring back something.
Bring back
Some-
in that
Mirage
spot.
Voyage
They-
at the Skull.
Dude, they did that for a little bit. They destroyed part of
I need
the.
it permanently.
That would help. It still needs more. They destroyed part of the map with Skulltown, and then they opened up another part of the map up north, relatively close to the same size that the whole Skulltown portion that pretty much fell off and died was. They need something to bring that back. If you have both of those at the same time, this map, it's probably close to big enough for the 60-player lobbies in today's Apex. And I think that would fix a lot of the issues with it. But
And Skulltown is the smallest map on this roster, is it not?
yes, by far.
So yeah, opening up more area where you can go makes it better.
Yeah,
Now, already, because when you're at the size disadvantage, there's not a whole lot you can come back from.
No.
Sound travels further.
Size disadvantage it ruins a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean,
one problem, another one is the verticality. Some of the spots, since they've added new characters with more movement, it is harder to. They need to make it so everyone can get to some of these spots.
and I do feel like they didn't think this
They
through
should just
because they didn't know this game was going to pop off.
No,
like
that's
this.
the thing.
They didn't know that they were going to have 4 white guys sitting in a room talking about it every week for the last year. They didn't know that. They had no clue.
You can't predict.
You can't
that.
predict that.
Right.
But
I don't know if that's as much of an issue.
I just think
Like-
you just throw zip lines on and it's a little better.
Isn't that part of the whole game being a team game?
I guess.
You pick certain legends because they have the ability to take that verticality.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just a map that is going to have to be you choose certain styles of legends on your team to help facilitate. They're not mandatory. You can still find a way to run up there and get around, but like there are certain things that you get a lot easier if you have a Pathfinder, an Ash, a Octane, a Valk. They always help it. Any mobility always helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have a lot of my problems were what you guys just said. Skulltown. I have another one that's the verticality. I have another one that's kind of a little different, and I've never seen this opinion out there yet, but I really think it should be more prominent. Swamps is really good for one thing, the personality of the map. A lot of that personality has gone away. And I miss it. I miss it desperately. It actually felt like you were playing on like an outland area where you're on the edge of the universe.
Yeah.
Nobody knows you're there. I miss that a lot. That's actually one of my big problems too. Is it lost its personality? There's no
It's just
outlands feel
like a
anymore.
desert almost.
Yeah. Now it has all the fancy buildings and it has all the crazy stuff, and it just kind of feels like a scientist playground. But Swamps, it has the personality. One thing that I think should happen, though, is right above Swamps, you have Repulsor and Hydro Dam. I think you not destroy them, but that back part of it where that leads into Swamps, I think it needs to go in like a ramp upward. So maybe like some sort of explosion drops down and has it kind of be able to feed into it.
Are you
I
talking
think that
on-
would make Swamps
them flow
more.
better.
You're talking on the southern part, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that you could have swamps fill into that more easily, because I think there's only just like a few zip lines that you could use to get up to those areas.
I would be okay with seeing like some rivers come off of that and head down there.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, if you can feed swamps into the rest of the map more freely, it opens up a whole nother portion of the map that really, I would argue, has not been used to its full potential. And I think early in this podcast, we talked about how swamps was like an area that they maybe were going to put a town takeover in, or maybe they were going to change up a little bit, and they never did. That's actually the biggest surprise to me about Kings Canyon, was they haven't really messed around with swamps. Even Fortnite had like a swamps area, and they changed the shit out of it.
Yeah.
But the swamps area needs like more accessibility to the rest of that area of the map.
It got definitely neglected quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's a great looking area.
It is.
I mean, that's
like I said,
like
I don't want
top
them.
two.
I don't want them to change the personality of the area. Just maybe ramp it down into
Small
those
adjustments.
Yeah, just like, because it's one giant building, right?
Yeah.
and then it just drops off into the ground. Now, if you had like the back area destroyed a little bit where it kind of feeds in, and maybe you have some like cover where there's rocks and maybe some cars, some loot areas right there, pills. I think that would be really cool. I think that would actually really kind of make the map flow a little bit better in that part.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you guys have any other problems with it?
I'm trying to think of what.
My biggest problem is just the personality. You lost the personality when you started adding all the buildings and stuff like that. And I understand, like, you kind of have to when you're adding bigger stuff. But I would argue, why don't you add in more of those shantytown buildings? Why don't you add in more of those? Because the more futuristic looking ones, it takes away from, like, what the map's entire vibe was.
What the feel was.
Yeah, it had, like, a grunge, like, this is a poor area for people who are neglected. They don't know the rest of the world. They're on the edge of the universe, like a Tatooine Star Wars feel, right?
Yeah.
And it lost that because you got rid of Skulltown.
I mean, that's
which
like
was,
the big Skulltown and Thunderdome. It's
it was like a city built on a dead ass
Yeah.
skeleton, and it
and
was
you
just
replaced
sitting there.
it with a fucking salvage.
Yeah, it was like a
shitty-ass-
salvage
yeah.
yard,
And
but
they
it was
also
developed.
They also did away with slums. They did away with bridges, and they did away with. Well, you already said
Slums.
Thunderdome.
Slums is actually a big miss.
Slum lakes. Like,
Yeah.
that's,
I like Slum Lakes.
I
but
did
I
love Slum
also
Lakes.
really
But
like the new place.
I really like the new place, but as far as the personality of the map went, there were a few places in this map that spoke above anything else. Skulltown, Thunderdome, barren wastelands, slums. It was slums. Like,
Yeah.
that's what it is. And then you had bridges, which was a couple small huts that were surrounding the river, the water down low, and were surrounded by basically barren caves.
Yeah.
It was a very poor, very basically neglected area, but it was amazing for gunfights, gameplay, everything like that was just awesome.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you lose. I think you actually lost a major part of the personality once you lost Bridges, because Bridges was
huge.
like, when you think about a city that is it's poor, or you think about an area that in general, like a developing area, everything goes next to the water.
Yeah.
And you had Bridges right next to the water. You had Slum Lakes right next to the water. You had all these areas. Skulltown was the only one that wasn't, but Skulltown was like a western barren wasteland. You
Yeah.
had like that awesome feel. And you could even the soundtrack behind Skulltown back in the old days, it was something I paid attention to, because you had like this weird like soundtrack in the background when you were playing the game of like distant yells and screams. They even got rid of that. So it's like you don't have that feel that you're alone on this random planet in this random area that nobody will ever know you existed. And I kind of miss that. I miss that feel. I miss having that. But that's my biggest issue with Skulltown. All the other things, though, are probably more important for gameplay. So those are all the problems. Let's talk a little bit more about the solutions. How can you fix Skulltown? How can you bring it back to its original legacy awesomeness that it had when it first launched? How can you bring back Skulltown to what it was before?
You mean Kings Canyon?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
How can you bring back Kings
That's good.
Canyon to what it was before?
I mean, I think with all the new mobility characters and stuff like we just talked about, you got to take out like the centered balloons. You got to take those out, and then you got to find a way to like kind of slow things down for everybody. So, because like with a Valkyl, you could clear the map like almost. You
You're
know what I
moving
mean?
halfway across the map, pretty much.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like if you can balloon and then Valkyl, like you're practically all the way across the other side of the map.
Yeah.
Like I think there's just got to be a way to like slow it down a little bit in the center at least.
I agree. I would also say, really, just a giant addition would be adding anything to where Skulltown is. I don't
Yeah.
care if it's Skulltown. You don't have to bring it back. But if you can at least go down there, like into that area where it used to be, or something, you have to have something there. Something has to be there.
Just build
Something
some.
bigger
the-
at least.
Remember the trailer from Loba?
Yeah.
The Loba trailer where she like went underground
And
where
there was a
Skulltown
lab.
was, and it caused Skulltown to fall. Like, bring the lab.
The
I
lab
like
would be
even
great.
if we can travel underground to the lab, and that's a legitimate place to stay and fight throughout the game. I think that's very viable, and it
Yeah,
fits.
that'd be cool.
Like it's something that fits the lore in it. Like,
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, I think if you add just something there, I will say it does have great POIs on the northern, like northeastern part of the map. Like
Yes.
there's the rig, I think it's called.
Yeah.
The rig is awesome. If there was, and the cool thing about the rig is it fits. I feel like it fits the personality.
Yeah.
It is more developed, but it has the same buildings. Like it has the exact same building type, building structure, but you also have all of the cool stuff. There's some other cool things that Kings Canyon has that other maps don't have, and one of those is the ultimate charge up thing.
Yeah,
That
the
is
holds,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the explosive holds. Explosive holds are awesome as well. I love those.
Yeah, but like also like the free getting the ult things like
Can't-
just lets you get the Valkyl
yeah, it
even
can be a
faster.
problem.
So then it's just like like I was saying before, it's just too much mobility.
So it really just comes down to removing balloons.
yeah, I
I
think
think that'd be a huge help.
I
in
think
this game.
removing balloons and like even some of those ultimate things, like
There are
the
a lot of
ultimate accelerator things, like anytime you can instantly get your ultimate, a lot of legends have movement abilities, so like that just kind of ruins a lot of the stuff, being able to move so fast across the map.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's that one town next to Wraith's town takeover. It has two within like a 100-meter radius.
Yeah,
It has the one with the three buildings by themselves, and then the other
Capacitor.
one, and then it has the other one with all the buildings right next to it. So
Yeah.
it's like you don't need two there.
No,
Maybe just keep one over there, and you can call it
And
good.
they're so
Yeah, it'd
close
be
to each
fine.
other too. They're not even that far a walk.
Yeah,
I mean, we did the challenge with me a while back on the map. Remember?
yeah.
Where it was just how many balloons can I hit? Can I hit all the balloons? And it got to the point where I hit all the balloons, and I didn't have enough time to hit all of them again. Like you can continuously hit balloons and balloon hop in this map. They need to remove some of them, like drastically remove some of these maps.
I really do feel if they would have just kept original Kings Canyon and upped the loot availability,
yeah,
I don't see anything wrong with that version of the map because it actually had so many little tiny areas that make other maps great. Like World's Edge, what's so great about it is there's so many small areas where you could get at least somewhat looted to survive at least one fight to where you could loot yourself up more.
Yeah.
Kings Canyon had those originally. Like remember there was like the river, there was that one set of buildings up on the top ledge.
Yeah.
That you had to walk up to.
Yeah.
That had a lot of loot there. You also had the back next to Slum Lakes. There was that upper area on the mountain ledge right
Yeah.
there too.
Yeah.
You had a lot of areas that had really solid loot. I mean, like really solid buildings for loot. They just didn't completely utilize how much loot could go in there.
I
yeah.
mean, just bring back the original map, or at least the size of the original map, the layout, and adds the new
Spotted Lakes.
Spotted
Yeah.
Lakes, the crash site. Add that and keep the original map, and that's probably going to be the best version you could get.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, and I don't know how you could do it. They'd have to find some weird way with the lore, but they've done weird shit like that before where like went back in time to get certain skins and shit. You go back a little bit in the lore, find a way, make it work. You did interdimensional space with Olympus.
At this point, they can make some shit up.
Yeah, just do the zombies thing where you just fucking go into a different universe. I don't care.
Just retcon everything.
Yeah, nobody cares about the lore. Nah, people do care. But anyway, just find something to change it and make it go back to what it was, but keep Crash Site, Spotted Lakes. I think that's how you fix Skulltown. That's probably the best way to do it.
I think you just add Skulltown back, and you bring back Thunderdome, and you bring back that little city behind it, and you just leave Spotted Lakes.
That's the one thing people forget about Skulltown too. Is like it wasn't just Skulltown.
Thunderdome.
It was
so
Skulltown,
good.
Thunderdome, the city next to Thunderdome on the left, the city next to Thunderdome on the right. There was like 4 places in one that you just completely
Just
got rid
demoed.
of. You just completely got rid of it, and all of it was gone. And you miss out on all of that. Even if you don't get Skulltown back, like I said, make that area accessible in some way, shape, or form because you're missing a huge part of the map. Like
Yeah.
a giant part of the map is gone.
Honestly, and I think now with all like the good POIs and stuff, I don't even think Skulltown would be the number 1 drop place anymore.
No.
Yeah, it would.
I think
I
for
think-
nostalgia reasons,
yeah.
but I think if you kept the loot what it was when it first launched, and you also had Crash Site, I'd land Crash Site
Every time.
Market, baby.
or Market too. Market needs more loot too. That's another
Market needs
low
more.
key.
Market.
Market needs more loot,
Market doesn't need more loot; it needs better loot.
better loot.
It needs to be a high tier loot spot again.
Yeah. Okay. I'd be down with that.
Yeah, I
I'd be
feel
down with
that.
that. All right, boys. I think we I think we fixed Kings Canyon.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with what we
I
said at
mean,
all.
Not that it needed fixing.
It needed fixed.
It did not.
definitely-
I
it
still
needed it.
still think it's the best map.